Hi, Don.
Hi, Ray.
Glad to have you back on the program.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Yeah, so Public Works has a lot to do with new resources. You've got a 3/8 sales tax for streets and roads and right-of-ways, and then you have Senate Bill 1, which is a transportation initiative, and local governments, including cities like Salinas, will receive an allocation. So it sounds like we're going to have significant additional resources to fix roads, to maintain them, maybe build some new streets as well.
Right. It's a real exciting time to be in Public Works. The Measure G contributions back in 2-3 years ago were the first time we'd invested in our sidewalks and streets in a very long time, responding to potholes and complaints, but actually out there fixing things and making progress finally. Our sidewalk list was so many years long of people waiting. So when Measure X was approved, we put it right to work. January 9th, the City Council approved bonding that money. So that allows us to take that sales tax money and combine what it would be $3.5 million a year, take 2/3 of that, and give us a check for $33 million right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's important because the size and the scope of the projects we have, both new roads and reconditioning old roads, we've counted at least 38 different projects totaling close to $120 million. So we have a lot of work to do because of all the years of deferred maintenance. So it all stacks up. Our pavement condition index was down to 54%. Yeah. And with these resources, we'll be able to catch up, hopefully, or at least break even and stop the bleeding.
It's really, a report card, I guess, on the conditions of our roads and streets. And how does that work?
Exactly. It's the first time we've had a pavement management condition study done. Mm-hmm. They looked at every street in the city.
Mm-hmm. And so it's a full inventory of everything.
Yes, 290 miles.
Wow.
Measured by the center line. So it's a lot of streets.
Mm-hmm.
And they rate each one as good, fair, poor, excellent. The newer streets and the newer neighborhoods are more towards excellent, but unfortunately we have a large number of streets that are in the poor or failing section. And if we just invest a little bit every 5 years in our streets, we can make them last a very long time.
Right.
And so it's great to have this inventory, it's great to have this data, and rather than responding and planning a street repair strategy with these new resources based on the call or the squeaky wheel, we're able to go out and tackle the worst problems first. This report card that we're working towards, it's required for both Measure X and then you mentioned Senate Bill 1. And Senate Bill 1 is also several $1 million a year that we have to put right back into our streets. The gas tax has been shrinking and shrinking as cars become more gas efficient and electric cars come online. So the state approved this measure last year. An important matter is going before the council next Tuesday is an initiative to overturn SB 1.
Okay.
And that would be a hard pill to swallow at this point. We've been working on our capital improvement budget for July 1. We need that money. We have a deficit still.
Right.
And so there's a discussion about a Prop 69 going on the ballot to preserve those funds so that we have them going forward.
Right.
So those are critical for us in our small city.
So it looks like between the two sources, SB 1 or Senate Bill 1 and the Measure X regional sales tax, it sounds like somewhere to 6 to 7.
6 to 7, about 3.5 plus 2.9. So right there, about 7, and that's new. Mm-hmm. So people are going to see a whole. They're going to get tired of the cones and the road construction in their neighborhood because they're going to be so busy doing this. And then, of course, we're moving forward with traffic calming and with sidewalk repair. Mm-hmm. And right behind the sidewalk repair, we're getting better now at timing the tree replacements.
Okay.
We're out on Central Avenue right now doing sidewalk repairs. It's our 4th project. We're planting trees on Tyler and Iris, and we combine that with a traffic calming project. We have 5 traffic calming projects done in the last 2 years and 6 more waiting in the wings. Mm-hmm. Again, on the council's agenda, coming soon to Riker and other neighborhoods. Right. So we have several different tools, and the council also approved, along with those funds, are 5 signals that are all under design at the same time. So they can all go out to bid at the same time all be built at the same time.
Right.
So instead of thinking linear, do one, start another, do one, start another, we've got them all packaged, moving forward together now.
Right.
So we'll be getting started soon on the new signal at St. Edwards and Laurel. That took longer than we thought to get started, but it should be started within a week or so. And then we should have a regular progression of new signals. It's really important, you've seen the tragedy and the pedestrian safety and the other issues that have come up. And this is, so the timing couldn't be better for us.
Right. From, a multi-departmental look, people tend to think it's just an enforcement. If you enforce the law, then we'll reduce the fatalities, we'll reduce the number of accidents. But part of that is making sure your infrastructure is up to date too, whether those are signals or whether there are, enough signs or indicators in the road that are crosswalks coming up. Seems to me it's both the design of how you make our streets safe in the design, as well as just enforcing the law on the back end.
Right. It's a three-legged stool.
Yeah.
Because you have the design, of course, and we're using the roundabout designs. We have our first one at Skyway in Alice Howe, and just down the street at Barden School, we've planned 2 more because it's so good for slowing traffic down and creating special parking. And so safe routes to school often will include roundabouts.
Right.
We're putting one on Veranda at McKinnon School, and then down in Hemingway, they're building a new middle school out there. So they're all critical components because we're trying to get kids to bike to school again.
Yes.
And
it'd be great.
That would be great. And so that's a critical component.
Right. So one of the big projects you mentioned is Laurel Street and the improvements there. From design to construction to completion, we're looking at a fairly significant amount of time. We're talking 18 months, 2 years, 3 years?
18 months.
Okay.
18 months. 2019 is the
Wow.
kickoff for that one. Sure.
Right.
We should have it well underway.
Yeah.
We are just finalizing the design. There's a grade going up to St. Edwards and making sure that that's handicap accessible.
Okay.
And after that, we have the environmental review because we have 2 creeks that go under that.
Yeah.
And then
That'll be a challenge.
That'll be a challenge, but we're already making headway in that. So we have a lot of under our control.
Right.
In the community.
And there'll be a separate bike lane or bike
inside
path?
the curb.
Okay.
Right. We either decompose granite or concrete. But
Okay.
it'll be separate Class A facility.
Oh, well, that'll be wonderful. We don't have many Class A bike pathways.
We do.
We
and
don't.
we don't. We do
Okay.
and we don't.
Okay.
And
We could do more, right?
Absolutely. There's a pretty good map on our website in Public Works. For example, coming down from Baranda Road all the way through Natividad Creek Park all the way to Laurel is a nice Class A bike path, and then going up the other side along Gabalon Creek is another bike path. So the purpose of the Laurel extension is connecting all the dots.
Right.
So
That's great.
So that's been a big help.
Right. And that extension, because it's taking a very populated area and moving that sort of pedestrian and some bike traffic through a very, what looks like a dangerous section in terms of traffic right now.
Right, very fast.
And it's up by the hospital.
Right, so it's going to connect the residents on Sanborn Road through Laurel Drive to the hospital, to the soccer complex, to the Safeway, to the parks there.
Right. Are we talking how many dollars total for that project? 7, 8, 9?
That project's closer to $8 or $9 million.
Okay, that's a huge project.
Big investment in bikes and pedestrians.
Right. And then the Baranda Road with the roundabouts, scale of that in terms of roughly the dollars that
Closer to $30 million.
Wow.
Yeah, big
So
project.
You spend a lot of money right away.
Yeah, it's not a blank check. So we're in the process of prioritizing, and that'll be part of the council's deliberations as we look at our CIP.
So when you present the pavement management system and what are the most pressing needs, if you will, on roads and conditions of road, you'll be able to tell them which sections of the city, which neighborhoods, which specific streets need to be done first. So it's based really on a need that's accepted and professional standard for how you take care of your roads, right?
Yes.
It's
yes.
not based on the most popular. It's not
Right,
based on
right.
because one part of our city is more vocal than another part. It's really based on the
data,
need.
on
Yeah,
data.
on data, great.
On surveys, and that's the metric by which the state and the Transportation Authority want to measure the success of their project.
Right.
Did you increase the quality of life for the whole city?
Right.
Not just one part of Salinas or another part of Salinas. It's got to reflect the whole city.
Right.
One of our employees works on our Governing for Racial Equity Committee, and she wasn't quite sure why she was on that committee. And I explained how this data was going to inform our work going forward.
Right.
And she came to me after the meeting and she said, you're exactly right. My mom lives across from Cesar Chavez Library, and it's one of the worst streets in Salinas, and she would never call City Hall.
Right.
She would never call City Hall. So this is going to be the data that's going to serve everyone.
Right. So how will citizens find out in terms of when their street might be next or in the queue or in the line? You've had the inventory,
Right.
and you'll make that public?
Yes, we're having a presentation next Tuesday. I don't know when this program will air, but they can go back and watch the tape.
Right.
And we're going to have our map up there that shows the different color roads. Each one is blue or red or orange or depending on the severity. And we need to prioritize, because if we can send a contractor to a neighborhood, a collection of bad streets, then we get a more efficient use of our tax dollars that way, rather than just sending a whole crew out to just do half a block here, half a block there. So we're trying to cluster them together.
Right.
But it's also a matter of preserving our streets that are good. So as much as we'd like to spend all of our money on the bad streets, we can't do that at the expense of the good streets getting worse.
You mentioned some issues in terms of traffic accidents, pedestrian accidents. Do we know, Don, where some of the more difficult roads are in terms of safety, intersections that need more work? Will those be taken care of, as well as those roads that need to increase their pavement management condition?
Right. So we took a list of
you mentioned signals too.
a list of intersections to the council, and
Right.
we prioritized them based on the traffic impact and accident analysis.
Okay, and those are the 5 you talked
Those are
about.
the 5 that we're lining up now.
Great.
Right.
A significant amount of resources is coming, and then you have to get the projects out. You actually have to construct design them, construct them, and get them out, and spend the money, which was the intent, of course.
Right.
And sometimes the public gets a little confused about, well, how come it takes so long? How come it, we know you got to design them, and you got to make sure they pass muster, and then you have to organize the work. You might want to couple projects together so that the contractor and the staff are working in one area, as
Right.
opposed to over here in the north end, and then the next day the south end, and how that might not be as effective or efficient.
Right.
So how are you handling all
So
that?
we have two different approaches. One is the traditional design, bid, build, which also includes, as you suggest, acquiring right-of-way, relocating utilities.
Right.
How fast does PG&E move?
Right.
and that's
Sometimes not very fast.
Sometimes not very
I mean,
fast.
it takes a while to get utilities to.
Exactly.
Right.
And roundabouts are increasing in popularity, but that means acquiring more right-of-way, at least at the intersection. It allows for thinner roads downstream. And then there's the basic project management. And that's one thing we're trying to do. We used to have a team of designers that would sit on CAD on their computers and actually design these roads. Now that's all pretty much contracted out.
Yeah.
We rely on engineering firms to do that for us, and then we take their bid package and we put it out. But where we need to sharpen our tools and become more efficient is how we go from the bid award to actually breaking ground.
Right.
And then managing those projects carefully. So we're becoming more of a project manager base.
Okay.
And what's interesting, as we've been able to recruit and fill our engineering staff, we're bringing in more people from the private sector.
Okay.
And the private sector knows what a schedule is and knows what a budget is.
Right.
And so those are the tools that we're using to steer these projects to make them more efficient. And I get frustrated. It takes time.
Sure, sure.
But I think we're doing a better job, and we're better staffed to do this than we have been for years. So we have the staffing to back it up.
Right.
We still have a few vacancies that we need to fill,
Okay.
but that's the intent of it. And then we have the job order contracting, which is more for projects that don't need to be designed so much.
Okay.
So when a street does need to be completely reconstructed, or the sidewalks do need to be reconstructed, we don't have to go to bid. We have 3 basically on-call contractors that are really good and really efficient. So,
Okay.
so when we can get that rolling, as the sidewalk project right now on Central is being done by a big company in town, that was an easy one to put out and to get going. You just have to keep the momentum going on those,
Right.
so that the contractor is here in town and they don't have
Right.
to go away and come
Right.
back. So if we can keep that momentum going,
Right.
then we can get our projects out faster.
That's an interesting project, Central, because the part that's around the park, and I've seen this looking at it, you actually are getting rid of some trees,
Right.
which might cause some concern by the neighborhood. On the other hand, you're replacing all the sidewalks,
Right,
that
right.
had been damaged as a result of those trees and the root system, etc. So, how's that project going? I mean, and how do you, make sure the public's informed so they're not
Right.
making assumptions that a certain outcome is, might be detrimental to them?
So you do that by through our inspectors. Our senior inspector, Jesse Rivas, is working on that project, and he's had some challenges, and we've seen some emails, and my neighbor got a brand new driveway, but I didn't, and they seem to be more concerned about these things.
Right.
We've already got our tree crews lined up so that there won't be any delay. I've already got a calendar set forth for them, but we can only replace the trees where the homeowners are willing to help us out.
Right.
For that first year, those trees need to be irrigated, and they just need to be watered once a week. Just let the hose soak in them.
Right.
And I think during the drought, we lost more trees than we hoped we would. But for now, anyway, as long as we get the willingness from the homeowner, then you'll get a new tree, and you'll get a tree that's designed to not mess up the sidewalk anymore.
Right. So one of the other things that you just mentioned, we just talked a little bit about sidewalks. So there must be a tremendous need, not just for streets and road improvements, but a lot of sidewalks.
Right. So we post a sidewalk list on our website, and as you know, I believe some people have been on that list more than 10 years.
Yeah, right.
And so a few years ago, we created something we call the 50/50 program, that if a resident wanted their sidewalk fixed right away and they had the capacity, they could pay out $3,500, $5,000 to get it fixed, and we would split the cost with them. Because they could hire the private contractor, they could oversee the work in front of their house, and they could get it done right away. Not everyone can afford that. And so we had mixed results. We had maybe a dozen a year over a course of 3 or 4 years and welcomed that program. So along with our Americans with Disability Act assessment, we did a whole assessment of our sidewalks, and that's allowed us to put this job order contracting program together where we've grouped several of them. Some of the sidewalks on Central are 3 feet displaced by roots. They look like skateboard ramps. After watching the Winter Olympics, we've got our own slalom course there. So we're addressing the worst ones first, we hope.
Right.
Where we can find a collection of them, and we have them in the queue. So
There's some state roads that are in our city, and I don't know if those will be also looked at from the state level and some improvements made. Do you have any idea? Have you heard from the State Transportation Department, Caltrans? Do we know what their plan might be? Because I think they received some money from Senate Bill 1 as well.
They sure do. In 2007, the state rebuilt much of Highway 183. They stopped at Baton Park, and then they started on the other side, and I'm smiling because of the accessibility under the railroad tracks.
Right, they left that with us.
They left that with us. We're talking to them about relinquishing that, and we expect a study from them. Should they relinquish it to the city, then we'll do a feasibility study, and we shouldn't accept 183 until they've addressed all the accessibility issues.
Right.
So we'll see. I don't know of any big plans on 183, except for plans that we're pushing.
Right.
Highway 68 was also redone recently, and the trees are in fairly good shape. Trying to reactivate South Salinas and South Main Street is a challenge because of there's no more parking.
Right.
And so a lot of the storefronts have turned their backs towards the Park Row and the other direction. Again, I'm not aware of any big improvements.
Okay.
What may happen, hopefully, with our police station on Alisal and that stretch all the way along the railroad corridor, maybe we'll see some private development going in on the Unico property on John and Abbott, and they can bring with them some street improvements that help fund some improvements there.
The fiscal year for the city starts July 1. So in terms of just sort of a range of expenditures, you've thrown a lot of different numbers out.
Right.
What can we expect in the next fiscal year, say July 1 through June 30th? So we're talking July 1, 2018 through June 30th of 2019. Sounds like we're poised to do a lot of construction.
Right. We're gonna jump from about $10 to $12 million this fiscal year to closer to $27-30 million next fiscal year.
That's huge.
It's huge.
Yeah.
It's twice as much.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're at the point where you've got those projects in the queue that the either right-of-way acquisitions, design has happened or is about to be finished, and you're ready to go to bid and get them done.
Right. This time next year, you're going to see a lot of dust.
Right. So you'll keep a communication plan to the public about when and where and the hours of construction. So people love having new streets or redone streets and improved streets and, sidewalks that are fixed. But they don't like those cones.
Right.
Or exactly. We're down to one lane today. So how will you manage that? I mean, obviously it's a communication issue.
So we're relying mostly on our website.
Okay.
And our GIS department has helped us with something we refer to as story maps.
Story maps, okay.
So when you go to our website, it's very user-friendly. You go to your own neighborhood and you'll see a dot there and you'll click on it and it'll bring you all of that status.
Right.
It'll give you phone numbers and contacts and schedules and photographs from the job and the way things look moving forward. So we're just working on those now. We have one on our roundabouts and we have one on our traffic calming programs.
Okay.
But aside from our inspector in the street who's knocking on your door, and which happens every day in Central Avenue right now, you can go to those story maps 24/7 and see the status.
On your website, in the Public Works Department, right?
It's a really great tool.
Right. And then the same with the pavement management condition, you'll be able to go to your website or the portion of your website, the city website that's Public Works, and you'll have that all posted. And they'll be able to read the map?
Yes, and in fact it's easier to read on a computer because you can blow it up and you can see your neighborhood.
Okay.
I was just talking with GIS earlier this week because I wanted to get a slide for the city council where you could actually see the street names and so forth. So it'll all be dialed into our GIS system, which you can find your parcel, your house, or your properties, wherever they may be, and then find out the status of your street and see where it is.
So it sounds like you're going to have this information, but you're also going to try to maximize the areas you work on, and that if an arterial might be worked on, there might be also a neighborhood street or a sidewalk that goes. So you're not kind of hop skipping here and there. You're trying to concentrate and leverage the resource.
A whole neighborhood, right? Instead of just one street at a time.
Right. And that way the disruption's minimized to a certain part of time and dates, as opposed to being spread over a year. It might be 6 months.
Exactly.
And you're done.
Try and be fast and as efficient as we can.
Right. So, and there'll be a number that the people can, make inquiries about the road or road conditions, or aside from the website, will they be able to communicate with you or in other ways?
Our usual numbers, 758-7237. And then we also have the Salinas Connect coming online. So
Right.
an app from their phone, you see a pothole, you photograph it, you put it into the app, and you send it, and we'll get it the same day.
That's
So-
amazing.
So yeah, the Salinas Connect is going to be a wonderful tool.
Right.
Just in the initial studies, just rolling it out in the last couple of weeks, it's daunting to think that Public Works is like 80% of all the
Yeah.
complaints or complaints, concerns
Right.
that the citizens are reporting.
Right.
So as we roll that out, that's just a wonderful tool, and it's going
Yeah.
to help us to track concerns.
Right.
And we always validate. We always go out and confirm. When someone says they're driving too fast in my neighborhood, we look at traffic counts. We go out and analyze before we invest any money in design or
Right.
community engagement. But if it's valid, then we'll go forward and get it in the queue.
Right. It's all about the data, and the data that's meeting or trying to address a standard so that, the most needy parts of the city, whether roads or streets or sidewalks, trees, they're the ones that will be first addressed.
That's our intention.
Right.
That's our goal.
Okay, so I think that's really important. It's a message that gets lost. As you mentioned, a lot of people they'll go visit their friend and they live in the south end and they go to the north side. How did you get your street fixed?
Right.
Right?
Right.
Well, the answer is in the data. We went with the most needy, the roads and streets and sidewalks that needed the most repair.
Right.
Right.
So we're just getting this up to speed,
Right.
and of course we have a backlog of other projects, so we're
Yeah.
going back and redressing those priorities to see how they mesh with our data. But we're trying to become fully data-driven.
Yeah.
And then in addition to that, having an open data portal,
Right.
so that residents with questions or concerns. I had a business owner, a large business owner, come to me today and ask me about the property on West Market, and I said, well, that's going to be the layover facility for the new train, and he didn't know that. And so you'd think they'd have told me that. I said, well, here you go. You asked the right question.
Right.
So, but it's always great to see folks, but hopefully soon
Right.
you'll be able to find that on your own on our website.
Right. Well, Don, this is exciting. We'll have you back again, I'm sure, as the progress on all these streets and roads and sidewalks and plantings of new trees. And so it's an exciting time to have all the resources, but it's a challenge getting the work done.
Absolutely. We got to get the work out. Time is money.
Right.
That was the.
Thanks again.
You're welcome. My pleasure.